Long before European ships reached these shores, a rich tapestry of life thrived across the North American continent. Native American tribes, each with their own unique customs, languages, and beliefs, called this land home for centuries. From the Pueblo peoples of the Southwest to the Iroquois Confederacy of the Northeast, these nations developed complex societies, honed their skills in agriculture, hunting, and trade, and lived in harmony with the natural world. Their stories, woven into the very fabric of the land, serve as a reminder of the deep roots of human presence in this nation. These were not monolithic groups frozen in time. They were as diverse as the ecosystems they inhabited, their lives a complex web of alliances, conflicts, and cultural exchange. Their stories, often absent from traditional textbooks, are essential to understanding the full scope of American history. The arrival of Europeans would forever alter the course of their lives and the destiny of the continent. The clash of these worlds, the old and the new, would shape the destiny of a continent and give rise to a new nation, forever marked by this complex and often tragic encounter. The echoes of these early interactions continue to resonate, reminding us of the importance of understanding the past as we navigate the present and shape the future. The 16th century marked a turning point in world history, as European powers, driven by a thirst for exploration and riches, set their sights on the vast expanse of the Atlantic Ocean. The Spanish, led by conquistadors seeking gold and glory, established a foothold in South and Central America. Meanwhile, the English, eager to establish their own colonial empire, turned their attention to the eastern shores of North America. In 1607, a small group of English settlers arrived on the shores of Virginia, establishing Jamestown, the first permanent English settlement in North America. Driven by a mix of economic opportunity and religious freedom, these early colonists faced immense challenges, from harsh weather conditions to conflicts with Native American tribes. Their story, one of perseverance and adaptation, marks the beginning of England's colonial venture in the New World. The establishment of Jamestown was a pivotal moment, marking the beginning of a new era in North America. It set in motion a chain of events that would lead to the formation of the United States, a nation built on the ideals of liberty, self-government, and opportunity. However, the arrival of Europeans also brought with it profound consequences for the indigenous populations, who would face displacement, disease, and cultural disruption in the centuries to come. Over the next century, 13 colonies took root along the Atlantic coast, each with its own distinct character and economic pursuits. The New England colonies, founded by Puritans seeking religious freedom, developed a strong maritime tradition, while the southern colonies, with their fertile soil and warm climate, embraced agriculture, relying heavily on enslaved African labor for their tobacco and rice plantations. As the colonies grew, so did their economic and political power. A thriving transatlantic trade network emerged, connecting the colonies to England and other parts of the world. Timber, furs, tobacco, and other raw materials flowed from the colonies to Europe, while manufactured goods made their way back across the Atlantic. This bustling commerce fueled economic growth and fostered a sense of independence among the colonists. However, beneath this facade of prosperity, tensions simmered. England's mercantilist policies, which sought to enrich the mother country at the expense of the colonies, increasingly rankled the colonists. Restrictions on trade, taxation without representation, and other grievances fueled a growing sense of resentment towards British rule. The seeds of rebellion were sown, waiting for the right moment to sprout. By the mid-18th century, the relationship between Great Britain and its American colonies had reached a breaking point. The British government, burdened by debt from its involvement in the French and Indian War, sought to assert greater control over its colonial possessions. A series of acts, including the Stamp Act and the Townshend Acts, levied taxes on the colonies, sparking widespread protests and boycotts. The cry of no taxation without representation reverberated throughout the colonies, reflecting the colonists' growing belief that they deserved a voice in their own governance. The British government's attempts to quell dissent through military force only served to further inflame tensions. The Boston Massacre, in which British soldiers fired upon unarmed colonists, became a rallying cry for resistance. In 1775, the simmering conflict erupted into open warfare with the battles of Lexington and Concord. The shot heard round the world marked the beginning of the American Revolutionary War, a struggle that would test the resolve of the colonists and forever alter the course of history. Section 5, a nation forged, a constitution crafted. The Declaration of Independence, adopted on July 4, 1776, stands as a beacon of liberty. Penned by Thomas Jefferson, it proclaimed the inherent rights of all men. Governments derived their just powers from the consent of the governed. The Revolutionary War raged for 8 long years, testing the mettle of the Continental Army, led by General George Washington. Key victories at Saratoga and Yorktown turned the tide of the war. In 1783, the Treaty of Paris recognized the independence of the United States. In 1787, delegates convened in Philadelphia to address the weaknesses of the Articles of Confederation. The result was the United States Constitution, a remarkable document that has stood the test of time. It established a system of government based on separation of powers, checks and balances, and federalism. Section 6, Westward-bound expansion and its price. With the young nation finding its footing, a spirit of adventure and opportunity fueled a westward expansion that would reshape the American landscape and its people. Pioneers, lured by the promise of fertile land and a fresh start, loaded up their wagons and headed west, their journeys fraught with danger and hardship. The Louisiana Purchase in 1803, orchestrated by President Thomas Jefferson, doubled the size of the United States, opening up vast territories west of the Mississippi River to exploration and settlement. This expansion, however, came at a steep price for Native American tribes who were forcibly removed from their ancestral lands and subjected to violence and displacement. The Trail of Tears, a harrowing chapter in American history, stands as a stark reminder of the human cost of expansion. The forced relocation of thousands of Cherokee, Creek, Seminole, Chickasaw, and Choctaw people from their homelands in the southeast to Indian Territory, present-day Oklahoma, resulted in widespread suffering and death. Section 7. A House Divided, the Shadow of Slavery and the Civil War. From its inception, the United States grappled with the institution of slavery, a moral stain on the nation's conscience. While the Founding Fathers recognized the inherent contradiction between the ideals of liberty and the practice of slavery, they failed to resolve this fundamental issue, leaving a legacy of division and conflict. As the nation expanded westward, the issue of slavery became increasingly contentious. The admission of new states, either free or slave, threatened to upset the delicate balance of power in Congress. Abolitionists, led by figures such as Frederick Douglass and Harriet Tubman, condemned slavery as a moral abomination, while pro-slavery advocates defended it as an economic necessity. In 1860, the election of Abraham Lincoln, a staunch opponent of slavery, as President of the United States, proved to be the tipping point. 11 Southern states, fearing that Lincoln's election signaled the end of their way of life, seceded from the Union, forming the Confederate States of America. The American Civil War, a nation divided against itself, had begun. Section 8. Industrial Rise, Social Change, a Nation Transformed. The latter half of the 19th century witnessed a period of dramatic transformation in the United States. The Civil War, while a tragic chapter in American history, also served as a catalyst for change. The abolition of slavery, enshrined in the 13th Amendment to the Constitution, marked a turning point in the nation's journey toward fulfilling its promise of liberty and equality for all. The Industrial Revolution, which had begun in Europe, took root in the United States, fueled by abundant natural resources, a growing workforce, and technological innovations. Factories sprang up in cities across the Northeast and Midwest, producing a wide array of goods from textiles to steel. This period of rapid industrialization brought about significant social and economic changes. Millions of immigrants, seeking a better life, flocked to the United States, drawn by the promise of opportunity. Cities swelled in size and a new urban working class emerged. Section 9. The American Century, Global Power and Domestic Strides. The 20th century dawned with the United States poised to become a global power. The Spanish-American War in 1898 signaled the country's emergence as a global force. The country played a pivotal role in 2 world wars, emerging as a victor, but at a great cost. The Great Depression tested the nation's resilience, but the American spirit prevailed. The civil rights movement marked a turning point in the struggle for racial equality. Led by courageous individuals like Martin Luther King Jr., the movement led to landmark legislation outlawing discrimination. The latter part of the century saw the United States grappling with the Cold War. As the century closed, the U.S. led a new era marked by globalization and technological advancements.